Hey guys, we've got news for January 19th for the Lunar New Year. And this week, joining me once again to discuss it is Barry. So you can say hello, Barry.
What's up, everybody? It's good to be here.
Indeed. So when we got, well, no, not before we got news, you asked for the Lunar New Year video slot like really far in advance, and it's here. And is this what you were asking for? Lunar Festival Cleome.
In absolutely no world was this ever what I was hoping for.
it it does seem a very strange choice to just it just like the whole thing in my head is that sound clip from Deuce X, the guy saying I didn't ask for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who was asking for Cleome as the unit? It's so strange.
And we'll get into this in just a second. I guess I get it because all of the units that I would have wanted this to be is part of the popularity poll. Um, but come on, come
Yeah,
on.
like we have so many like all these to choose from that don't have Neos. Yan, Aang, Yoon, Baizu, Quinn, Fu, Zu, what I can't say their name, but a bunch of them, and we just like out of nowhere. And on top of that, a season 3 unit, one of the lowest rated seasons of all.
Ugh, I
Wow,
know. And
wow.
and I mean, we might as well jump into it. It's not as though she doesn't look not that dissimilar to Chizuru too.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the sprite, don't get me wrong. I think these Clash of Wills unit sprites have been pretty spot on across the board. Um, but it just feels like a rehashing of Chizuru. And then on top of it, once again, because I feel like this happened once prior, and I maybe shouldn't be quoted on this. Don't take this too seriously. But didn't we get Cleome's NVA the same time that Sephiroth came out?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I do remember that Cleome, the unit herself, was skipped at first on global, the original
Mm-hmm.
version, and then then,
Mm-hmm.
then she was added like a year later. The Awakening, I don't remember if it came on time or if they moved it. I really don't remember. It didn't really matter much at the time.
No, no, not at all. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I just feel like the last or previously, when something involving Sephiroth came out, we also had Cleome in relative proximity. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, great, we get two new samurais with swords at the same time
Mm-hmm.
again.
And now, just for the listeners, just to be clear, we're only discussing like currently the unit, like the choice in the sprite. We have no idea about the kit herself. She may be the next
Hmm.
best Sylvie. We don't know yet, but just the choice of character is a little strange, apparently, to both of us. But
Yes.
and we were also a little bit confused on the live stream if it was going to be a limited time or not. Now, confirmation, she is a limited time unit. So
Hmm.
if you don't pull her this week or the next 2 weeks, too bad. Well, for this year, I guess. And we're getting a special vision card. This is kind of surprising to me. I didn't expect this. The
No, me neither.
Dancing White Dragon. So is that like Ling now that I'm actually.
Yep.
It is Ling.
Hmm.
Now that I'm looking at, okay, interesting. We'll come back to that in just a minute. But so the step up looks like at a very brief math about the same price, 28K. Yeah, the usual.
Hmm.
Um, Multiple Neos guaranteed, etc. Yeah, so it's fine. And a card. So
And a card.
pretty cool. Also, apparently, Shu Yu and Chow are coming back. A little. I mean, kind of expected. I guess I should have figured they absolutely would, but I don't know. I'm still a little bitter about Shu Yi's whatever updates, but she's just thrown in the banner along with all the rest, so kind of whatever.
Yeah, I still have a bit of an aversion to what we could technically call a triple NV banner, but I mean, what are
Mm-hmm.
you gonna do at this point?
Mm-hmm. So here we go. More information. She is a 0 turn cooldown, so true brave shift both ways, infinite duration, not trance. It's always good to see.
Hmm.
Mage in the base, mage and buffer in the shift. And let's go ahead and look at her kit. Let's go over her STMR and all first. So, another weapon STMR. How excited are we about this?
You know, not, but at the same time, it's not so upsetting to see a non-element locked two-handed magical katana. More than once that has been necessary. Now, is this ever going to be something you use over the Dark Vision sword? Probably not, but it at least fills more of a niche than we've had.
Like, I agree. It's a good STMR, or it's a good it's a good weapon. And
Hmm.
this is obviously better than the next best katana, which is Cow's, which this has higher base and 100 double hand on it. That's great. So if you're putting a katana on a unit, I've done this, like you say. My early Morgana clears were using like a double handed katana on Elena, etc., because
Hmm.
of Kaito and all the weapon in peril. But
Hmm.
it's just like it's maybe this is just me being FOMO and all, but these like weapon STMRs, I feel like I have to get multiple copies or it's wasteful and
Yep.
I'll regret it later. So I'll go
Same.
and like, yeah, I'll like Moogle like a minimum of one extra, sometimes two extra, like Sukiko's staff or rod and all that. And then it ends up just never use it because the next week we get another STMR weapon, and it does just the same thing. And
Yep.
I mean, that could very
I mean,
well.
I did the exact same thing just recently with two Bs,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. I made 2 copies of 2B's STMR. I barely even used the original copy, and that could very well just be a me problem. Like I should just stop moogling the STMRs. And I guarantee you, the minute I fuse all the copies without moogling an extra, I'll regret it the next week. Because
Yep.
something will come up, and I'm like, oh, I really wanted a second copy of that STMR.
See, at least in this case, because to me, this is still a better alternative than using calls STMR or most of the others. If we need magic katanas, this is to me the best by far.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So I probably won't regret making what I can only imagine will be three of them.
So yeah, that is. It's not so much that I don't like the weapons, but I just wish for some variety. Like, so I know we have the clash gear for like chest and helm slot and accessory slots.
Hmm.
So that kind of eats into all that, but like give us some STMR quality materials. We had the one for A2, and her STMR is, a nice change of pace. It's a good
Hmm.
STMR. I did kind of say it's a little bit similar to Irving's STMR. It's better, of course, but just, I don't know. I want some more variety, just not a weapon every single time.
Yes. It's just, I'm tired of using expansion tickets on my equipment inventory.
Oh, yeah.
Every single time we get a new unit, and then you run them through Item World, and then they become a whole new item because technically it has a different role on it. So we just used, let's say we can make three copies of this. You just filled up three slots, not counting the event gear that you don't really care about that just sits there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's getting to be a headache.
Yep. And then her TMR is clothing. It's, I guess, good for her because of the 500 flat, but for everyone else, it's a little bit on the low side. 60
Hmm.
base. It does have LB damage and killers on it, so it could be useful sometimes. Not bad or anything.
No, definitely not.
And then the kit. The kit is always so minimal in these previews. I guess that kind of makes sense. I don't expect an entire wiki page in the news, but I wish they gave us a little more than this. Uh,
Yes.
so EX passive, a bunch of stats and auto LB fill, which is nice. Katana in peril, it's AOE. It boosts fire damage. It seems to be a rolling amplify. It sounds like, and then a rolling killer and magic buff. So, do you think I've seen some speculation from people because seems to be the first time of like a ramping other than Amplify. Do you think it's going to like break the 400% stat cap for buffs? Like, will this go to like a 500% magic buff, or is it just going to be just up to 400 after so many turns? What do you think?
I think we're still gonna stay capped at 400. I just don't think it's time yet to go further than that. Not that I wouldn't love it, but I don't see it quite being time yet. I don't think we see something that does greater than 400 until we start getting global exclusive or at least global original leader skills.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Uh,
because that would be a hell of a power tier jump just for the sake of a limited time non-premium unit.
oh, true. That is true. So yeah, that's the unit. We don't really have much more to go on, so I guess wait till Thursday for us to get the data mine where we can see if it's a great unit or a dud. We will find
Indeed.
out soon. Now, as far as her vision card, I mentioned this briefly in the. Actually, I didn't in my preview video. Yeah, but her vision card, it's good. It's certainly better than the majority of JP vision cards on non-premiums. It's
Hmm.
just we've got so many at this point. It feels like another just magic card, but it does have the like Sylvie effect on the card where it fills morale, so that could be good.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, it depends on how much, of course, and
Mm-hmm.
are we ever gonna run more than one mage in a Clash of Wills that would necessitate having multiples of this card? I don't have an answer to that. So who knows?
Mm-hmm. But certainly a nice card. And then this one, honestly, I haven't even really looked at it because I was kind of surprised and news just came out. So let's go ahead and look at it. So, stats, 2000 basically HP. It's good. 130 magic and then some fluff stats. Still good for bulk, I guess. 100 LB damage and then flat stats, and killers, always nice. And then what is this? So,
It's a cooldown, it looks like. An Omni Killer cooldown.
is this AoE or self only? So,
Self.
it reduces. Oh, and it's mitigation. Interesting.
So
Okay.
it's four killers, mitigations, racial mitigations.
And this is completely misaligned for
Interesting.
the Clash.
Hmm.
Clash is Beast and Demon. Neither of those are on there. So I guess this is like future proofing. If you're pulling for what's her name, Cleome anyway, I guess it's a really cool perk.
Hmm.
Uh, in your opinion, Barry, is this the kind of card that someone would pull for just for the card? Like, assuming this was on a 19k standalone banner like the previous card, should they go? Should someone go for this? I don't know. I guess to really know that we have to know the value, so like how much of a killer and
Right.
mitigation.
So if if we can target somebody else with this cooldown skill,
It's
um,
forecaster, forecaster.
you're right. I I don't know. That becomes a very confusing skill. I mean, it's not like racial mitigations are ever, you never regret that you have them.
Mm-hmm.
Having them on a card is really, really cool, but your tank is going to be who you typically want racial mitigations on. Are you ever going to put a card with 88 flat spirit and defense on a tank when any other card exists? I don't know. That said, having at least some defense and spirit does mean that you could, for the sake of this skill, put it on a tank. So I don't know. I'm not running headlong into a wall saying I absolutely need it, but I
Mm-hmm.
won't regret having it either.
Also, something I'm noticing: there's no duration listed. So is this just a permanent buff once cast?
Hmm.
That could make it really interesting if it's more for the tank side. If this is, let's just say, for example, 50% permanent uptime after you cast it, mitigations for your tank, like I would put this on the tank and drop.
Yeah,
You're losing like 20 of the base stats and all, as opposed to like the power cut card or something. But I would do that for mitigations that I wasn't getting from my party elsewhere. That could be really good.
it could.
Wow. So I am really curious to see the data on the. Once again, the news gives us no real data because we don't see the
Right,
values.
right.
Ah, sigh. But
But at least we're not completely writing it off, which is better than we've said for some of these.
oh, for sure, for sure, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we'll have to see. See soon. And then the event is event dungeon. Is this like a raid? No, it can't be because we have a raid currently active, huh?
Mog, I think.
Mm, farming. Oh, we saw all this in the live stream. Yeah. So the gear is fine, nothing special. Bonus units, and then we're getting a. Is this a daily? No, it's a one-time boss. Usually these are relatively simple, but we'll
Hmm.
see. Sometimes they're not. And then the daily fragment challenge. So it's
Okay.
it's like a double-edged sword here. So global is giving us the double fragments that kinda JP gets. Yay, awesome. But then global has to go and like make it worse. Why do they do this? So, for context, in JP, when they run their special double fragments, it's just when you run the dungeon, you get double the fragments. You'll get between 2 to 6 per unit instead of 1 to 3 per unit. Global is making you run it twice per day, so even for someone that just never rerolls their fragments, they are still doubling your busy work. It's not that big a deal, it's an extra 30 seconds. But for someone that min maxes their fragments and like rerolls the dungeon, up to 30 times for more fragments, you gotta do that twice per day. So not only is that gonna be like an extra X amount of energy per day, it's doubling your time per day. Why would they do this, Barry, instead of just straight up copying the double drops from JP?
You know, I don't have an answer for that. And then on top of that, why wouldn't we just go back to for a 2 week stretch of time, give us the old fragment dungeon of 5 fragments? That already exists. They already have that coding. And technically speaking, going in twice a day could be better, but I can count on one hand the number of times I've had 3 fragments ever drop, which means the odds of me getting 6, unless I wanted to spam energy refills all day, and I absolutely don't. Um, it I don't understand why they wouldn't do it. Now, devil's advocate, it's cool that they're doing this, I guess, if
Oh,
you
for
are
sure.
someone who doesn't pull for EX3s and doesn't, you know, have a small amount of units you run in the frag dungeon anyway, this is cool. But we already have coding in existence for just give me a 2 week stretch of 5 shards per unit per day.
Would be nice. Would be nice.
It'd be
Uh,
great.
but we are getting, the fragment. How long is it anyway? The 19th to the 1st. So what is that? About 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's the normal 2 weeks.
Okay, so very nice. Very nice. We are getting it. Season 4 story update. Not a whole lot to say. It's a season 4 story update. If you're enjoying the story, you're getting more. You're getting more lapis, etc. There is no more special story gear, which is a little bit sad. The Runda Blaster was the last piece of special storyline gear for the season 4 units. They may add more in the future, but as of the current time in JP, there has not been any more added. So it's a
They
little
were
unfortunate.
tired.
Yeah,
They
because
were tired of making Runda the best unit in the game.
but a whole bunch of the gear was actually pretty good. The Tyvis's
That's true.
stuff. Yeah, a whole bunch of
Lefty
it.
is Silk Ribbon.
Oh, you got yeah, the best fire amp in the game. Um, yeah, but
Until we see Cleome.
that could be true. Could be.
Now that I finally pulled my Leftia.
And then we're getting super, super late, but it's finally here. The silver crown. It is silvers, right? Yes, silver
Hmm.
crowns for Sephiroth and Reno. So these battles, I've mentioned before, these are series locked. I didn't actually browse and confirm if they're going to keep it locked on global. They probably will. So it's only Final Fantasy. Oh, here it is right here, exclusive to FS7. So it is Final Fantasy 7 only. I mentioned before these are not super hard for Final Fantasy 7 because most people have like a decent sized roster from the series.
Hmm.
Some of the future ones can be hard that are much more limited, like Final Fantasy 11. But this shouldn't be too bad. Sephiroth's crowns, we'll go over them more in a minute. Here's also an option for those players that don't play JP. If you, for some reason, don't want the free upgrades for the unit, now I would not recommend this for Sephiroth. This more comes into play for units you already crowned. Like for example, oh, I guess we didn't get. I was gonna say for Ferris upcoming, but we actually never got hers. Uh,
Nope.
but for example, Reno. Let's just say, for example, you're a player that pulls everything. You don't need Reno's crowns. You can trade them in for 4 silvers for 1 gold, if you choose to. So there you go. So all these silver crowns, you can trade all of them in for a single gold crown if you want to. Normally, I would not recommend that because most of these units are going to have, at the very least, some value in their series locked EX battles, and more of them come back. For example, in the future, during the Zack event, these EX battles are actually pretty hard, but you can trade them in. So, are you going to trade all your Sephiroth crowns away, Barry?
Oh God, no. This might be the only unit that I'm at least halfway looking forward to crowning.
Mm-hmm.
And only because I will probably pull for DSCs or Diosis or whatever, just for the sake of having really fun Dark Team shenanigans.
Nice, nice. Also, we are getting Sephiroth's Masamune again. For those of you that either missed it or for some reason want a second copy, you're getting another one. I think this was like a special event in JP, or maybe it was just like a general. It might have been just overall quest and not an event. Now they're just doing it in like a login reward or something for global. But you're getting his +3 Masamune. That said, it is a lot worse than the Dark Vision's Katana, but if you don't have that, this is probably his best. I will mention in the future, I just mentioned about Zack's event, his Masamune goes to +4 in the Zack event, and at that point it becomes very, very good. For Sephiroth only.
Mm-hmm.
But
Because in most cases, the DV Katana will still be better.
yeah. So keep that in mind. Keep a copy, make it, etc., and it'll get even better in the distant future. And then as far as the unit upgrades, we're not going to go over them specifically. Basically, Reno becomes a better breaker, and Sephiroth deals a lot more damage. That's the basics of it. He gets a 150 amplify, and his LB becomes stronger, and his Katana Imperil becomes higher. And he gets some more chaining skills. He gets like Bolting Strike and Absolute Mirror of Equity by memory, and he already has Stardust Ray.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice.
I have to say, just for the sake of building units with high numbers, once we do get the Dark Leader skill, it will be very interesting to see what you can build Sephiroth to be with Clash Gear.
Oh, with Clash Gear, yeah, because in JP, my Sephiroth gets to something like 14,500 attack power.
Right.
Um, Maybe higher if I went like just pure EPing and wasn't really trying to, make like a realistic build. Oh, and that's also without the special 170 Dark card that I don't have yet in JP. So yeah, he could definitely break 15k, maybe 15 and a half to 16. It'd certainly be funny.
That would be disgusting.
That'd be
Ugh.
awesome.
And all to get power crept 3 weeks later.
Oh Lord, it's so true though. But yes.
Oh, man.
And the Clash of Wills boss for this month is different than they showed us in the live stream. Different style of graphic, but it is hair. So this is the first boss of the season, and I love what you call these bosses, Barry. What does that mean for the first boss?
Yeah, it's the cupcake boss.
I love that.
It's the easiest one by far. You go in, you face roll it, you re-roll your tickets, you forget that there was even Clash of Wills active for the month of January. It's gonna be great.
Oh, gee.
But the sprite looks amazing, so
It's very cool.
I do enjoy their sprites, even if we're in quarter one or month one of the quarter, full on cupcake time.
So the boss uses fire, dark, and non-elemental physical and magical attacks. So it sounds like maybe you want to use an Omni Cover tank again, or something like a magic tank with Mirage, or I guess a physical tank and bulk up your team. That didn't work so well last month, but I guess we can try again.
And will we need Lilith's preemptive dark
Oh jeez.
buff?
He buffs himself up as his HP goes lower, and this is kind of interesting. Well, I guess not really. I guess you shouldn't technically see that. He ejects allies after a certain number of turns, or if not, dealt fire, ice, or dark damage. I'm just going to go on a limb here and say this probably, like the timer part of it, probably resets on thresholds. Was kind of like a way so you can't just stall out.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it means like you realistically have less than 10 turns to do the fight, that would be brutal. But
No, 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 not in January. That'd be too hard. That's not that's not for cupcakes.
and then he heals himself when his HP falls below a certain point. And the healing last month was actually a pretty big deal and made the fight significantly harder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is true that it is the first boss, so it probably won't be a big deal for this one, which will, again, probably be a cupcake and easy to kill. But just as a mechanic in general for Clash bosses, did you enjoy the, like, soft DPS check kind of the boss, the way it's designed like that last month, Barry?
So I really like the concept of it because it is a way to kind of artificially manufacture difficulty. Um, the one thing that it did seem like it did, though, is it very much cut away about a third of players' ability to complete it in the timer unless you had, fully kit out great units or near units or what have you. Um, and so I don't hate it the way a lot of people did. Um, it's just I think that if you want to make a fight harder, there's other ways to do it rather than it being a DPS check that also requires very specific gear. Because in our meta, we're past a place where it's all about which units have which modifiers. Because if that was the case, Clash of Wills already requires EX2 plus.
Mm-hmm.
So you pretty much are already required to have fully EX3'd out units like 2B and A2 and hope for the best. Um, and then you throw a gear check on top of it. I don't know that it took a step in an interesting direction because I like it being harder, but I don't want them to start pushing players to now it is an absolute requirement that all of your units are EX3 and you have to be rank 1ing every single clash to have the clash gear so that you can actually keep up with DPS checks like that. And I don't know, I think that gets into a very precarious place that the game won't survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I pretty much agree. So we have to see how they handle it. And here's something else I'm noticing. So apparently, we're all over the place. In the beginning of the month, the monthly bulletin, it was listed as primary dark weakness. It's once again listed as primary dark weakness in the official Clash news. But during the live stream, it was listed as fire primary weakness, and then Cleome is a fire unit. So
Uh-huh.
oh my god, what is going on here? So is this boss primarily weak to fire or dark? They cannot decide, apparently.
I believe the answer is to be determined.
I would assume fire, but they keep putting this dark. Like, it's very clearly out of place, because dark is always, in the elemental order of the game, fire's first, but they're putting dark first yet again. So, yeah, get on that, Gumi. What is
Yeah, I
it?
don't know. Is that it's not even like they're selling Sephiroth again because he doesn't have his own banner.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I don't know. I got nothing for that.
strange, strange. Now, here's also another update. The morale gauge has been extended by 33% for Echelon 5. Now, what that basically means is it's going to take 33% more of the direct fill amounts to fill the bar. So, oh god, by memory, I think the size of the bar it's either 30,000 or is it 45,000? I forget the exact amount, whatever it is, the fill we do is not actually in percentage. It's in flat amounts. Like, for
Mm.
example, Kresnik's Arcane Stimulant fills 1,000 of the morale gauge. So now it is going to fill effectively 33% less because it'll fill the bar 33% less than it was previously. So this is like a nerf on morale generation. Now, last month, morale was a complete joke. Like, it filled in a turn. That's because the boss didn't really push it back any. Do you think this is intended to make it harder to fill morale, or as a way to, like, it can't even be to counter Chow, because all making the morale harder would be is making Chow more required than before. So
Right.
I don't know. What is the point of making the morale gauge bigger?
I I do think that Chow does have to play a role in that. Um, Clearly, their attempts to make Chow less viable in Clash of Wills lasted for 1 month's Clash of Wills and really didn't even dissuade people that much because if your mitigations were enough, it wasn't that big of a deal. Um, so I do think that Chow will still come. More, I think what this is as more equipment has come out, more vision cards have come out that just have a passive morale fill skill in them. You've been able to slot, 6 party members worth of vision cards with morale fill now, and so I think this is kind of just a way to make it so that the whole point of Clash of Wills being morale generation is not a completely moot point.
At the same time, though, exactly like you say, if it's balanced around people owning 6 copies of like Wilk, Sylvie, and now Cleome's card, what about those players that just don't have 6 copies of those kind of cards?
Well,
Uh,
considering Sylvie's card is in the premium EX1 ticket exchange pool now, that becomes much less of an argument with how many, off banners you could get for a premium unit at this point.
that is true. That is true.
So it's really easy to get a hold of those. And then on top of it, you have the rod from Morgana, which is so heavily crept at this point that who cares? And then on top of it, you have, you know, 5 pieces of Clash gear that generate morale every turn, which becomes a moot point. I don't know. I think this is just what they've had to do to make it so that you still have to think about working towards morale generation as opposed to you set passives and then morale is irrelevant.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And then the other thing is this season we're not getting any new gear or new unique gear. We are getting a new tier of the existing gear. So now all the gear goes to plus version. And here's the Xenostone required. All that really matters is you need 2,500 for the one that you're going to buy, which is the
Right.
rulers. But let's go over all the updates. So the Summoner's Garb, technically speaking, became amazing. It has Ihana's TMR built in. It's going to flat out
Hmm.
max out your Esper bonus, and then 100% to both evocation, magic, and damage. You know that they it lists differently, but this is Evo magic and Evo damage in game. So completely amazing. Uh,
Hmm.
but you know,
Well,
yes.
as
So
long as you have a magic-based evoker, yes.
yeah, and who is going to even use this? Sukiko maxes her passives very easily, so this is she will
Hmm.
she will always use Ruler's Gear. You're never using, or you're not going to make Clash Gear for like Rydia or something. You might take her out of the
Nope.
closet once a year for like the Doom Train or something, but realistically, we're not making the Clash Gear for things like Rydia or Terra, etc. So it's it's disappointing because this gear is so amazing, but
It's
summoners are
really good.
so bad right now.
But who knows? Maybe that just opens the door for the eventual Neo Visions Morgana that I'm sure we'll get.
hmm And then these sprinters, so 75 LB damage, and then fill rate, and then fill per turn, which is mostly irrelevant because if you need, I mean, it's not irrelevant, but like anytime you pretty much have to have your fill rate and stuff, you usually have a plan for it in the party. You don't need it from your gear stuff. So really, this is just 75% LB damage
Hmm.
at the cost of 500 flat stats. Again, I say this is just no one's gonna ever make this.
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't think so. And then the killers. So 150 to Beast and Fairy. It's a lot of killers. 300 effective killers if both of them apply at once. This I could see maybe in like when they both line up. But assuming for where only one of these matches, do you think this is worth crafting over like Ruler's Gear, Barry?
Look, I made one of the, I think I made a hunter's at one point garb. I've never used it. So I have to say no. I think materia is too easy to get a hold of now. Um, I don't see ever using it in lieu of flat stats.
Mm-hmm.
Because even now, the only other piece of gear that we've had that you would potentially run being Magisters, Magisters has flat stats now,
Mm-hmm.
which I love. Now it's only, 200 instead of 500, but if I can do that and then I'm still, if I don't have to run a bunch of Magister's rings and I can go back to a ruler's ring, then I'd much rather do that.
Yeah. So my problem with this kind of gear is it's so specialized. Something like rulers or magisters is literally universally useful. No matter what you're
Hmm.
fighting, that is a good pick. This is so specialized against only two races. So it costs a bunch of Xenostone for all the recipe, and then the upgraded recipe, and then it costs the orb to swap back and forth. That's not the biggest deal, but it's just like I feel like I would consider making something like a killer Clash piece of gear if it was Omni Killer. Now, it doesn't need to be Omni 150. That's overboard. But
That's
like
ridiculous.
Omni 100 or Omni 75 would be, because if it's Omni 75, it's always going to be 150 versus most races, or
Hmm.
most bosses, because most bosses are dual race. So Omni 75 would be like, was Omni 75 killer. Do you think that would then be a contender for competing with a ruler's chess piece?
I think it's possible. Um, I still probably feel like in most cases and most situations, you would still end up running flat stats though. Just because it's so easy to cap killers unless we start getting, triple racial bosses where, now that's 225 effective killers and that's ridiculous. If that starts to become more normative, that'd be different. But until we get there, I would still probably run flat stats or damage cap.
Makes sense. And as you mentioned, the Magisters is getting upgraded to 200 flat stats, and then the Rulers is upgraded to 500 flat stats. So you did mention that you like this because you can swap this to the Magisters and then swap the ring to Emperors.
Hmm.
I would point out that is actually a loss because you're gaining 200 from this, but so you're losing 300 to go here in order to gain 200 from your rings. You're still losing 100 by doing that. So
Hmm.
rulers is still where it's at.
That's true.
Yep. So rulers, my personal recommendation for everyone: go rulers on the Celestite Regalia of Will. If you don't have all the Clash gear, the magic is actually, if you don't have all the Clash gear, don't buy the upgraded forms yet. Buy all the level 10s of all the other gear first, and then
Yes.
and then you probably want to go straight to the rulers. But
But
I could definitely see some scenarios where this would be useful. You want a third Magister's item on your team or something. This is actually a good option now.
it's true. I mean, then again, I look at my my Xenostones. Do you know how much Xenostone you have right now? Because I
Um,
imagine you've probably rank one all of them,
uh,
right?
I think there's only either two or maybe three that I did not rank one where it was possible to. The very first one I did not rank one because I wasn't well enough to get EX 18 when it was 18 on the very first one. I couldn't do it.
Hmm.
And then it was unshareable for I think the castle and the one after that, so I didn't get rank one in those. But all the rest I did.
So I'm looking right now. I mean, I've been a similar situation, right? So I didn't rank one the ones that weren't shared. And I also had a single frivolous purchase because I purchased the Hunter's or the Huntsman's Esoterica for the clothes. I still have almost 12,500 Xenostone shards.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how much I have. I think it's over like 16,000. I looked kind of recently.
Which would make sense. I mean,
And
it's
yeah,
it.
I actually did not buy the ruler's ring. Is probably why I've got a lot more than you. Yeah, I have.
That plus Huntsman.
Mm, but
I,
yeah,
s-
so
I it's at a point though where now, unless they're gonna start when they give us new Clash gear, they give us this plus version that's going to cost more. It's running into a place where if you are able to rank one Clash every time that it is shareable, you have an abundance of Xenostone that you just have a maxed out piece of gear immediately. And now we're waiting another, what, 5, 6 months for another one?
and like I would love to buy these other recipes. It's just they're not worth it, and
Nope.
that's a problem that the developers need to address. That this gear is it is just so far behind the rulers and the magisters. And yeah, you know how they could fix this honestly
Hmm.
is they could. I don't want to say take away the rulers because that would be don't take things away, but they could put this 500 flat stats on all the pieces, literally all of them, and
It's true.
then add a unique thing to each. That way, you're not choosing between 500 stats or killer. They would all have the equal stats. You're then choosing, do I want the killer, the LB damage, or the evoker stuff? That would be an interesting equal choice and be great. But you can't put something like this that is head and shoulders above the other options and expect us to go for inferior picks like sprinters.
Hmm.
You can't do that. So that would be my recommendation: is add the rulers to all the pieces, and then spread out a unique, equal power piece passive on all the other pieces.
Yeah. I'd honestly really love to see the Magisters one just get absorbed into all of them
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
I hate choosing between flat stats and damage cap.
Mm-hmm. Would be nice. And then the units for the store. 6 units. Frievia, if you don't have her but did pull for Oyaka, she wouldn't be a bad pick. Ricard and Wyverns. I mean, I was going to say it's good for Dragoon gear, but really? Dragoons? Not anymore.
Right.
Fledgling Warrior, good STMR for your physical tanks. Cacteria is an okay budget generic breaker. Yigni, Dead in the Water. Louise, it's a good turn 190 Spirit Breaker if you don't have a better option yet. Other than
I
that,
guess.
not the most exciting shop for units.
I was pretty disappointed to see Louise on there again.
Again, I know, I know.
There's so many units that it could have been.
And then we have the materials for the month. This was what I was most looking forward to. So, Ice, Water, Earth, and Dark by 60%. So, 4 different resistances. That's better than things like, Summer, Lids,
Uh-huh.
STMR, etc. And it also has a chance of filling morale gauge. So, a morale fill counter. Pretty interesting. Put that on your tank, and you get some free morale. Awesome.
Yeah, it's not upset. Now it specifically says a physical attack.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it's going to be your passive provoke evader, which is great, but
Mm-hmm.
240% elemental resist is never a bad thing that presumably we can get two of.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I will be buying all 4 of these, 2 each. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And that's pretty much it for the Clash news. The only thing else I wanted to really talk about is we got a update for the popularity poll. At the current time, Malphasey is winning, followed by Ellispiris, Esther, Beryl, and Wilk. What are your thoughts on the current results of the popularity poll, Barry?
Hi everyone. Okay. So I couldn't help but notice that Ong isn't even on the top five. And I just need you all to understand how big of a mistake that is. I love Beryl. I love Ellis Barris. I love Malphasey. They're all great. Esther doesn't need another unit as much as I love her too. But guys, Ong exists. And for those of you who weren't there when his initial event came out when he and Chow were on banner, he is one of the only people in the game that has lore. He had a whole event, and it'd be great if Gumi wanted to rerun that so that we could at least play through the story part of it again because it was great. But Ong exists, and he needs to be there. And if not, then like let's remember that the original broken healer support the way for units like Sylvie was Myra, and she also exists, but not on the top 5. We don't need more generic chaining damage types, especially not if they're going to make Malphase a hybrid again,
Oh
because clearly
God,
hybrid units just don't need to be.
I just
Um,
I just remembered. You just reminded me. She was a hybrid. Please,
she was indeed a hybrid.
please, OMG, do not make a hybrid unit. That would be an instant death sentence. Do not do it.
We also don't need another katana-based damage dealer like Elisperis. We just don't. Not that the units aren't really, really cool, but when is the last time any of you can sit here, look me in the eye, and said, I really want to use a bow? Well, that's because you didn't use Ong when he was the original limit burst, drop everything, and nuke it on turn 3 damage dealer.
Mm-hmm.
So all these fun things that we can do are really because the unit Ong allowed that to be a thing in the first place. Let's give respect where it's due.
And I gotta say, what I'm surprised at is that Sylvie it didn't make the top 5, and I'm super happy. I do not want another Sylvie unit. Like Sylvie's great, she's amazing, but I don't want another one. Kind of like Esther. Like we had enough Esthers, we don't need more.
Hmm.
But I'm just surprised she didn't make it. I was so sure Sylvie would be like top 1 or 2, but she's
Same.
not even top 5.
I
I'm
mean,
happy.
she's number 1 in my heart, but there's other units. There's other units that really need it. I'm glad that Elena isn't on the list again because she
Mm-hmm.
really just doesn't need it. Um, it's good to see some of the old fan units on this list. I mean, Beryl always was almost spiritually designed to be a Brave Shift unit anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If we really break it down between his, heaven hell forms, I think that's a great thing to see just in general. But there's so many more creative supports that we could see on this list.
Yep.
Tanks we could see on this list. There's Ong. It's just give me
I
give me an Ong Yun tag unit. It could be so great.
could be pretty cool. So that's pretty much it for the week. We'll have more stuff on Thursday. So thanks again for joining, Barry.
Yeah, man, happy to be here.
All right. See you guys then. Later.